Busy desk.
This is Joe Allen speaking. Put me onto a telephone recorder.
Go ahead, Joe.
One of the worst fires in the city's history is still raging out of control. The known casualties are 125 to date, with 12 dead. And there may be more.
Hey, that's an exciting story, Joe.
Yes, am I glad it's over. I've had 4 hours sleep on 4 nights.
Well, at least you're not chained to an office. Sometime I wish I could switch with you.
You don't know when you're well off. But don't get me wrong. The lift that I get out of seeing my stuff in print still compensates for a lot of odd hours.
Is a story like that printed the way you phone it in?
Oh, just about. After the rewrite man works over it a bit. There was a time, though, when you couldn't be sure that all your facts got through straight. In the excitement of a spot news story, there was always a chance of a slip-up. But the papers just put in telephone recording machines.
Telephone recording? That's a new wrinkle. How's it working out?
Can't miss. Telephone recording is insurance against mistakes. Even though you talk fast, you know the guy at the other end has all the facts. There's a record there of what you said, just the way you said it. In a few minutes, the typist makes a transcription. Gives the rewrite man a clean type copy, word for word. When you're handling technical stuff, telephone recording's a real blessing.
Say, Professor, I'm looking for some more information on the paper you read before the Society of Physicists last night. I'd like to ask you to be more specific on the possible uses of atomic fission for industrial purposes.
Well, I'm afraid what you want is too technical to give you over the phone.
I'm sure of that, sir. But if you give it to me now, it'll be recorded at this end in your exact words, as fast as you care to talk.
Oh, telephone recording, I see. Are you ready? Well, supposing we start with the problems of transportation.
Simple, isn't it? Then we know we've got it right. That makes everybody happy.
Sounds like a great thing for you fellas.
I should think businessmen like you would need them.
No, Joe. Your business is one thing, mine's another. You see, I wouldn't have any use for telephone recording.
No, Mr. Baker? Let's see about that when you get back to the office.
Anything else, Miss Seeley?
Mr. Glynn called while you were out.
That's funny. I thought he was on his way to Denver.
He said his plane was grounded in Chicago. I took the message.
Thank you. Why, this couldn't be right. Is that all he had to say? Newton? Who's Newton? Did Mr. Glynn say where he could be reached?
He was in such a hurry, Mr. Baker, and he talked so fast. And I just come back from lunch myself. I was all out of breath.
All right. But you should have been able to see that this was important. Miss Seeley, didn't you get the firm name?
Well, it was something like Acme. No, that wasn't it. But, Mr. Baker, I thought you'd know.
Oh, all right, Miss Seeley. I'll call you in a few minutes. Thank you.
Too bad, Mr. Baker, that you and everyone else of sufficient executive rank and experience were out. Too bad you can't reach Glynn for a few days. R.C. Newton of the Ajax Corporation is waiting to hear if you can supply 300 of your Model 42X at the right price, which you can do. But when they don't hear from you, they'll go ahead with something else. Too bad that incomplete message you received is going to cost you $1,500.
Mr. Ward of Ward Jones is on the phone.
Thank you, Miss Seeley. Hello, Mr. Ward. Yes. But, that's an awfully short time, Mr. Ward. We'll have to get busy immediately. Yeah. 30? Oh, 13, I see. 13, yes. The West Coast units without covers. 13 with and 11 without. I find. Now, would you give me those dates, Mr. Ward, please? Chicago by the 14th. St. Louis. St. Louis. Oh, but that will require an extra operation, Mr. Ward. Oh, certainly we can do it. But, oh, all right, Mr. Ward. Thank you very much. Come in, Miss Seeley, please. Memo to Brown. Mr. Ward, Ward Jones, has given us a rush job. He wants 5 dozen of the new model. 1 dozen each to his Chicago office, St. Louis, excuse me. Hello. Oh, hello, Jim. Just fine. Yeah. But Brown told me you agreed to that change if we, Why, only half of that way? Well, I can't understand that. Jim, I'm sorry, but we'll straighten it out right away. I hope. Now, where was I, Miss Seeley?
St. Louis,
San Francisco. This last lot must have 11 with covers, 13 without. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Miss Seeley. It's just the other way around. 13 with. Yeah.
Are you sure, Mr. Baker? And those dates, are you sure? This is the information Brown will have to act on, you know.
That's all, Miss Seeley. Say, Bob, there's Brown now. Wait, Miss Seeley. Would you read that memo to Mr. Brown, please? Hello? Oh, hello, Roger.
Ward of Ward Jones wants 5 dozen of the new model.
Well, no, not right now, I can't.
1 dozen each to his Chicago office, St. Louis, and San Francisco.
Well, I know I should read them, but as soon as I...
San Francisco gets 13 with covers and 11
all right.
without.
About, just the other way around, Miss Seeley. Yeah, about half an hour. All right. I'll be there. So long.
I think we can make this, but didn't Ward specify the color?
Color? Why, green. Green for all except the St. Louis lot. No, they're green, too. He wanted some blue. I'll have to call him back. Get me Ward of Ward Jones. Hey, Bob, Jim Summers just called. How come that only half of his were... Yes? Well, I'll see you in a minute. Well, have him call me back as soon as he comes in. Yes. Baker. No. Ed Baker. Mr. Ed Baker. Yes. Thank you.
Telephone recording wouldn't be any use in your business, Mr. Baker? Wouldn't it be a lot easier? It would give your telephone a memory. You'd save time and embarrassment. You could concentrate on the gist of your conversations and still be sure of getting all the facts and figures right. Suppose everything Mr. Glynn said, Mr. Summers, and Mr. Ward, and everything that you said to them had been recorded.
Hello, Mr. Ward.
Baker?
Yes.
How are you? Say, I've got an urgent order for you. We want 8 dozen of your new model first thing next week.
That's an awfully short time, Mr. Ward. We'll have to get busy immediately.
That's right. And they've got to go to several of our offices.
Yes, if these important conversations had been recorded, you'd have them right there on your desk ready to be played back word for word. And transcribed. By now, there'd be accurate typed copies in the hands of everyone concerned for their information. Isn't this easier, faster, surer? Isn't telephone recording more businesslike?
Hello, Doc. Come on in. How are you?
Fine.
Hey, you're a hard one to catch for a game of golf.
My first afternoon off in 6 weeks.
As soon as Joe and Charlie get here, we'll go over to the club. Have one?
No, thanks.
Excuse me for a second while I finish dictating this letter.
Dictate.
Oh, looking for my secretary? There she is.
Well, what do you know? Pretty, isn't she?
You bet. Be with you in a second. I don't think the thing is important enough to make it an issue. But the next time you're in town, I wish you'd give me a ring. And we'll talk it over then. Very truly yours, Ed Baker.
First time I've seen one of these. So what do you do, just sit there and talk?
Yes, Doc, this is it. The little Mike here catches it all and plays it back, too.
At your age, starting to collect gadgets?
Doc, you may be an advanced thinker in medicine, but your idea of a gadget's way off the beam. I ordered one for the office first, just with the idea of making it standard procedure to record all important telephone conversations. But it does a lot of other things, too.
Like what?
No kidding. It's amazing the time these machines can save and how they can help you to get things done. We couldn't get along without them now. My office, like everybody else's, I guess, is perpetually swamped in paperwork. My secretary is always up to her neck in it. There just didn't seem to be any way of avoiding pulling her away from her work constantly to come in for dictation. Now I just press a button, talk my work away. It's said and done. Miss Seeley keeps right on with what she's doing. Also, if she's out in her office, she can stall off a lot of phone calls that would keep interrupting if she were in mine. The only time my phone rings is when it should. A lot of my calls are long distance, and lately we've been doing a lot of foreign business. On those calls, I figure telephone recording can mean a real saving. Then, too, my Spanish is strictly high school, and other foreign languages stop me completely. Most of the people we do business with abroad speak English, but they can't help lapsing into their own language now and then. Now, I just have those parts translated later.
Aren't you carrying this a little too far, bringing one home?
It's far from a personal extravagance, Doctor. I do a lot of weekend work from time to time. It used to mean spoiling the weekends for my secretary, Miss Seeley, and the extra money wasn't worth it to her. So I brought Betsy in as a permanent home secretary. Another thing, she's a perfect thought trap for those ideas that pop into your head at home and are forgotten in the morning.
Here they come now. Well, if you can tear yourself away from your thought traps, I have some folding money that says Charlie and I can take you and Joe, even with your crooked handicaps. And you can record that, too.
Excuse me, Doctor. Hello? Yes?
Hiya, Doc.
Dr. White? Yes, he's right here. Doctor, your office. Hiya, boys.
Yes, Miss Thompson?
I'm sorry, Doctor, but there's no help for it. That young Dr. Bond just called long distance from the clinic. He's almost sure he has one of those cases you're particularly interested in.
Can I call him back?
You won't be able to. He's operating. He's going to call back here in an hour and a half. All he really wanted was give you the case history, have you go over it tonight, and he'd call in the morning.
Did he give the particulars to you?
He tried to, Doctor, but I'm afraid it was too much for me.
All right, Miss Thompson. When Dr. Bond calls, have the call switched out here. Well, that's that. Better rustle up a fourth around the locker room. I have to sit on this phone.
What's the matter with your nurse? Why can't she take the call? If it's something quick, they can always send somebody out from the clubhouse to get you.
No, it's too involved for her. It's a young doctor at the clinic. Has a particularly interesting case. Wants me to check his diagnosis. I know he wouldn't call me unless it was important.
Is it absolutely necessary you talk to this Dr. Bond yourself?
That's the only way I could be sure of exactly what he says.
In other words, he doesn't need an answer from you right away.
That's right.
Then let's go play golf. Everybody in the house knows how to work Betsy here. Tell Miss Thompson about it. And when she switches the call over, your Dr. Bond can talk to his heart's content. We come back, and it's all here for you in his voice and his words.
Well, speaking as a scientist and a golfer, what will science think of next?
Go on, call Miss Thompson. Let's go. Say, Doctor, what was that crack about increasing your folding money?
4 men of widely diverse interests and activities in the business and professional worlds. 3 of them have discovered how useful telephone recording can be. A gadget, Doctor? Suppose this weren't only a few hours of relaxation you'd managed to arrange for yourself. How many hours during the day aren't you accessible to important telephone calls? All the most capable Miss Thompsons in the world can only understand so much. What about those notes you must make after phone calls with patients? You make them every day at night, after your secretary nurse has left. Think of the valuable time you'd save talking your case histories, instructions, follow-up reminders to a dictaphone machine that's always ready. Spot news that breaks just ahead of press time. As a newspaperman, Joe Allen knows that telephone recording means time saved. No errors in facts because of human fallibility on the receiving end. A machine, instead of a man, records the story as it is called in. No working from quickly scribbled notes. Assured accuracy. Mr. Baker, you said your business was different. But is it really? In every business, there are important calls, information that must be remembered, relayed to others, acted upon. Important telephone messages recorded, even if you or others competent to handle them are out of the office. Time saved by not having to call your secretary away from all the work that is already piled up. Time saved. What of those long-distance calls when you used to keep saying, "What? I didn't get that." Would you mind repeating that? So much time saved. That's 3 of them. What about number 4? Charlie's been following the discussion about telephone recording and turning it over in his mind. Charlie's a stickler for detail. No one ever accused him of offering a snap judgment. It's plain to him that the idea of recording telephone conversations is efficient. But he prefers to let other people experiment with newfangled notions. While telephone recording may be a new idea to Charlie, actually, in the 1880s, Dictaphone's parent company was already producing voice recording machines for business use. This was just a few short years after the invention of the first practical telephone. Ever since those crude but revolutionary early models, engineers of Dictaphone Corporation and its parent companies have pioneered advance after advance in the field of sound recording for business. Leadership has been consistent. Behind the modern dictaphone machines is well over half a century of cumulative experience, skilled craftsmanship, and progressive engineering. It's an acknowledged fact that more and more people all over the world have learned to think of dictaphone when they think of dictating and recording machines. No, Charlie, telephone recording is not a newfangled idea. The first machines for that specific purpose were developed by Dictaphone Corporation in the 1920s for a large utility company's use in power dispatching. In recent years, the need for telephone recording has become increasingly apparent, and the development of equipment for that purpose has been accelerated. Engineered into the present models are the latest discoveries in electronic science, and they have been thoroughly field tested. The new dictaphone telephone recorders are the sum of a long series of achievements in the field of voice recording for business use. The field in which Dictaphone Corporation has specialized and led for over half a century. If Charlie were to use electronic recording for a while, he'd wonder how he ever got along without it. It makes the telephone an even more practical, fast, accurate, and convenient way of handling business. No more fumbling around with notes or being dependent on shorthand notes which a secretary took down while listening in. For Charlie's information, there are thousands of users of dictaphone telephone recording machines all over the world. Telephone recorders permit overseas conversations under bad static conditions and even with weak signals. In virtually every industry and profession, they promote speed, accuracy, and convenience. Users range from the largest corporation to the smallest professional office. Telephone recording provides a permanent record of all important phone conversations and makes these verbatim accounts available to associates of one or both of the participants for information and action. It simplifies the transmission and reception of highly detailed data or instructions and eliminates errors of interpretation. It's a modern business tool. With telephone recording, there's never a doubt. You can be sure as Charlie's putt, it's accurate. And that's just what Dr. White will discover.
There it is, Doctor.
As you know, Doctor, I wouldn't call you unless I was certain that this case would interest you. 1 second, please, while I make sure my notes are in order.
What do you know about that?
All right, Doc. I'll give you the case history and my diagnosis. The patient is a 58-year-old male who has a history of high blood pressure over a period of years. 6 weeks ago, he had a severe bout of headaches with diplopia. We feel that he has a left occipital parietal lobe syndrome, probably angiospasms in left occipital.